throughout the run, he will gain time on Dan in the menuing, and there's nothing Dan can do about it. So to counter that, Armin will start 35 seconds late. So it's fair. Dan is underway. Armin will wait for that 35 seconds. Hopefully it's pretty in sync. Oh, I'm sorry, Matthias, if I misspoke. Yeah, the loser of the Smurfy match. Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, so actually, yeah, that would not be the loser's final. Sorry about that. Dan coming through lap 1. Oh, I didn't notice. Okay, so hopefully everything is... Yeah, I may have to pause Armin's stream like a second or something, it looks like. Okay, so it looks like in-game he's 35 seconds back, so we should be pretty good now. So Luigi Raceway, pretty simple course. It's actually a nice warm-up course, I would say, on this mode. No one getting any mushrooms so far. At least I didn't notice any. These players will be fishing for mushrooms throughout the match. That's the best item you can get in first place in terms of speed. The rest of the items kind of will try to troll you, as laying your own items and hitting them is a common occurrence, unfortunately. Dan did come through at a 136, so we will just have to track Armin's in-game timer and try to see if he's gaining or losing time. He will lose 1.5 seconds on the first track, I think. Coming through at a 138, though. Dan getting a mushroom already on Moo Moo Farm. Moo Moo Farm, notorious for the moles. They are completely random, and how fast these players want to go and how close they hug that wall, they will have to deal with more and more of those moles. We'll see how risky Dan decides to play it. Dan playing it fairly safe, although does go inside that final molehill. But not really risking, not driving over any himself. Oh, when Armin gets lightninged, that's just bad luck. That'll cost him 4 seconds or so. Doing the small strategies, you actually go faster spinning out when you're small, which is kind of an interesting mechanic. Dan finishing off with a 110. Armin getting a boo, but not really getting much use out of it. A boo, normally a pretty good item on this course. You can go through the moles uncontested and take that tight line and not have to worry about getting hit, but the way he used it, didn't really get too much out of it there. Dan starting Koopa Troopa. So this course is kind of interesting. There's a ramp jump that is considered non-shortcut. But if you miss it, they can lose a ton of time. Dan makes it cleanly, and he will go for the item manipulation at the end of the lap. I think most people know what that is by now. You can actually get an 8th place item in first place, and he does it perfectly, getting the star, which is the #1 item he wants to get. Taking the big hop off the wall there. Yeah, you're really hoping for that star or that gold shroom, as those are the fastest speed items in the game, the star being the best. And he will try to get another one here. And he gets another one, the double star on Koopa Troopa Beach. The dream start for Dan in the race. Armin will go for that item manipulation now. And I don't believe he hit the Z button at the right time, as he only gets a banana. It's fairly precise. There's a little bit of a polygon, and actually the further away from the finish line you are, the easier it is, but you go slower further away from the finish line because you're under the water. Armin will try to get a star on lap 2, and he gets the item manipulation, but not an item that will help him, unfortunately. Dan starting Calamari Desert. Some of these players, the trains are on awful spots on this track as Armin hits the ramp jump on lap 3. Dan also getting a shroom, so because the trains are in such bad spots, a lot of these players will go for what's called a train gap and try to drive under the carts in between the trains. It's a very tough trick to do, but Dan has done it time and time again, and I assume we'll go for it on lap 2. If he messes it up, it's not a super big time loss, but if he gets it like he did, he cuts off that whole time he would normally have to wait to come across against the back of the train. Oh, but Dan hit, I guess, a fake there, but he will make it through on lap 2, and he will use that shroom to try to beat the train on lap 3. So these trains are on cycles, but it can get kind of tough if you're not going really fast, or if you just take the slow approach, like most people probably, and just go off the backs of them. We'll see what strategy Armin goes for on lap 2. Oh, and Dan trying to make it around the train. Oh, he gets around it. Wow, that was tight. I did not think he was going to make that. Dan holding that item behind him will also reduce the lag. Armin also beating the second train on lap 2. I wasn't watching his screen. I'm not sure if he made it. So Dan will reset and move on to Flower Cup. Looks like Armin will be holding that shroom for the end. And you can see this train on Armin's screen is just completely in the way. Players have to slow down, so that's what happens most of the time for normal players. Dan is just really good and got that train gap. Very well done. So Toad's Turnpike is not too crazy of a course. It's just a figure 8 weaving in and out of these cars. This is not extra mode, so they're not coming at you. So most of them are pretty easy to navigate, but there are some tight squeezes throughout the course of the run that these players will have to deal with. Also, there are certain courses where mushrooms save a ton of time. This is not one of them. Mushrooms are still the best item to get, but they just don't save that much time. There's no grass area to cut across or anything, so that's the reason for that. Also, this course notorious for crazy rubber banding. The CPUs will just attach to the back of you sometimes, and it doesn't matter if you're the best player in the world. They will be right off the back of you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And sometimes they throw bananas forward, and they're very good at sniping with the bananas in this game. They're not allowed to throw shells, but they do a very good job of throwing the bananas. As Armin makes his way onto lap 2, Dan making his way onto lap 3. Yeah, this course is really just all about doing your mini turbos as well as possible, as quickly as possible. You can see just how good Dan is at that, being the second best time trialist in the world. Very quick at mini turboing. Armin moves on to lap 3 as Dan finishes up with a 223 high. Yeah, exactly. The CPU's sometimes getting top 10 times in the world. Crazy. Armin also having a clean race. No big mistakes from either player. As Dan starts Frap Snowland now, there are snowmen around this course, but as they don't move, so it's not a huge thing to deal with. Dan getting a mushroom, which is a big deal on this course, saves a lot of time, almost a second. NoHarmony coming through at a 227, so I believe Dan got like a 223 or something. So. As Dan makes his way under the, kind of doing an awkward MT there, but we'll make it around the snowman on lap 2. And you can kind of see how big of a lead Dan actually has as he picks up a mushroom going into lap 3. Will allow him to get a very good time on this track if he keeps it clean. You can just kind of like subtract the in-game timers, and you can kind of see how big of a lead Dan actually has, as he's definitely opened it up. He started 35 seconds ahead, but he has opened that up even more. Dan getting a clean jump going in between the snowmen. Time trial strategies here in 150. Most people play it a little safer in 150 mode because you go faster and it can be tougher to control your kart. And risking a snowman hit is not worth it, but not Dan. He goes for it, and he does it very well. Yeah, about 45 seconds. Yeah, that sounds correct. Armin not making any real big mistakes. He's driving well. Sometimes when you're playing a guy like Dan, you just have to try to keep it as close as possible and hope things happen in your favor, as they definitely can in this format. Lightnings will come out of nowhere and just lose you 4 or 5 seconds, and there's nothing you can do about it. Mistakes happen. So Armin coming through at a 139, as Dan almost finished Chaco Mountain right now. No real concerns much about Chaco Mountain. There is no guardrail in 150 mode compared to time trial, so you can technically fall off. You don't see it often. There is a boulder that can flatten you. As Dan knocks out that fake with one of his shells, making his way through the boulders and that dangerous section I was talking about. Oh, Dan picking up another mushroom. He's gotten a lot this race. I feel like that's at least 3 or 4 I think he's gotten. This is also a very technical track. You can see how tight these players take their turns. Oh, and Dan picks up another shroom, uses it right away. Not the ideal shroom spot, but gets the full effect of that shroom, as he's actually technically on world record pace. I assume he's comparing against his splits. It's not by much, but also something to keep an eye out. Now on Mario Raceway, there are a couple options these players have. You can go for this item manipulation. we'll see it. I assume Dan will go for it. Basically, you can take the long route here and trigger these items in the pipe, as Dan did there. He got it, but not a speed item, so he'll just throw those red shells against the wall. Armin coming through at a 136. Very solid time. So we'll see if Dan goes for it again. Yes, he will. And he will hop in between those trees. Trigger the item on the pipe, gets the lightning, but unfortunately that won't make him go any faster. Dan going inside the mushroom cut, he hits it. Armin not even going for the item manipulation, just going to race it normally. Dan getting a mushroom to end the track. Another mushroom for him as he resets. Unfortunately for Dan, he's not on world record. He lost some time to the world record since he did not do the mushroom cut and did not get good RNG on the item manipulation. Armin hits the item manipulation, but only gets 3 red shells. And while this is a newer strat, at least in terms of a race situation, it seems that people are really going for this item manipulation, and people have decided that it's definitely worth it. And we will definitely see more of this in the races to come for sure. Dan starting the second longest course in the game, Wario Stadium. Just a long technical course. There is a ramp jump, but it's like everyone makes it over. In theory, the lightning could lightning you right before and send you off. That would be extremely bad luck. We don't wish that on anyone. For those of us just joining us, the lightning count is 1-0. Armin has been lightninged, Dan has not. Dan closing up lap 1 with a 1:10.50. What's the mushroom count? That's a good question. Dan has definitely had more mushrooms, but I can't tell you the exact number. It seems like Dan's getting one at least every other race. Armin, I don't believe Armin has had too many, unfortunately for him. So solid lap from Armin, no big mistakes. Dan picking up a boo. Boo won't be able to do too much on this track. You do get invincibility, but really there's nothing you really need it from on this track. There's no really dangerous areas. Now the CPUs will use bananas right here, so he may... Okay, he's going to hold on to everything. Doesn't want to fire those green shells. But it will allow him with the boo to pick up an extra item. Well, if he had used it at a certain... Okay, no, he did get an extra item, okay. Oh, and Dan hits himself with the shell. As Armin... Oh, he cut that last turn so close. Armin doing a very nice job on that. Will make his way on to lap 3. 111.3. So not too far off of Dan's pace. Dan in the home stretch, about to finish this one up. As Armin will have to figure out how to... Well, he can just lay the bananas since it's lap 3. Sometimes these banana bunches are just really annoying to get. On like laps 1 and 2, you have to figure out how to throw them forward, which can be tricky, or lay them in a way so you won't hit them yourself. Oh, Armin going for one of the tougher mini turbos in the game, but having some trouble there. Dan came through at a 331. For those of you tracking the individual level times. Dan's starting Sherbetland. Now the penguins here are on cycles, so the players will know where they're at. Armin finally getting a mushroom. It's good to see. But in the cave, these penguins are like, this is a tight area. Oh, Dan gets lightninged in the worst spot in the cave. That's bad luck. The lightning count is even now. That could have been disastrous, because if you're small and you hit a penguin, you will be flattened, and it can take you a long time to get back up to size and speed. Oh, Dan getting a boo on lap 2, that'll help. He'll be able to go through these penguins risk-free as Armin starts Sherbetland. Also, crack jumps. You can jump the cracks on this track, and it's still non-shortcut. And how far you want to risk jumping can save potentially a lot of time over the course of the race. But obviously, falling in is a thing, and it can take longer in this track if you fall in because of the ice animation. So it comes with a price. Dan's saving that boo for lap 3. I expect him to use it right here, so he can get through no problem. Dan finishing up, no swag finish on Dan's side, but he comes through at a 141. You can kind of see how much time he lost with that lightning. Armin making his way onto lap 3, goes around the deep. Okay, Armin having a clean cave there on Sherbetland as Dan makes his way around the hairpin on Royal Raceway. Armin does get the swag finish. So Royal Raceway, one of the longer courses in the game. Nothing too interesting about Royal Raceway, although the mushroom does save a lot of time if these players are fortunate enough to pick up a mushroom. There's a big grass turn they can cut before the long straightaway, before the ramp jump. So you'll see Dan do that here on lap 2. Armin picking up a boo. So a boo on this track is actually pretty nice. He can hold it for the finish line glitch and get an 8th place item. It's kind of more rare to see than the other finish line glitches because you can't trigger an item because the last set of item boxes is too far away from the finish line. So you have to get a boo in order to even attempt it. So we'll see him go to the right here, trigger it. Oh, and he just gets a red shell. I'm not sure if his timing was just slightly off or if he just had bad luck there. But that won't be what he's looking for. Dan gets a banana. Also, these boost pads work as mushrooms also. So if you slide on a boost pad, you actually go faster than driving usually. So that's why you'll see these players try to do a charge up a mini turbo during the boost. As Armin spins out, and that's a bad spot to spin out, as now he's in the grass and has to make his way back onto the road. Dan coming through it at 2:19. Armin underway on lap 3. Yeah, where Armin had some trouble there, that can be a very tricky area. Sometimes you have to hop into the grass area, and sometimes you get a double bounce, and you can spin yourself out very easily. Dan makes his way onto Bowser's Castle. This is arguably the toughest course in the run. The thwomps are on cycles, but there are just so many of them, and there's so many tight areas on this track. Pretty much everything is a concern. With spinning yourself out, to the CPUs place awful items on lap 2. Sometimes, it's like right before the bridge area especially, you can hit one banana and fall in the lava very easily, and there's very little you can do about it. And if you make one little mistake, the thwomp cycles will all be off, and you won't know where to go. As you can see, Dan hitting a thwomp and spinning out, and having to wait for that other thwomp to go up. To progress. As Toad moves ahead on Dan's screen for a little bit. Armin getting the banana bunch, which is an awful item on this course. There's nowhere good to lay these. I assume he'll try to get rid of them. Okay, so he's going to get rid of them right there on that bridge. Hopefully, for his sake, the CPUs hit those, and he won't have to deal with them on lap 3. Also, you can notice on Armin's screen, the thwomps look a little bit different on emulator. Dan almost oh, he spins out, but narrowly avoids falling into the lava. That was a close one. Oh, Armin, very unlucky to hit the banana peel right there, as he had 3 green shells, but saves the spin out, hits Wario instead. So Dan will go on to Special Cup, the last cup of the run. 4 more tracks to go for him. So DK Jungle Parkway is the laggiest course in the game. Armin will be able to make up a ton of time on this course just because of the lag. Armin does pick up that late mushroom on Bowser's Castle, but it's kind of too late to use it in a real good spot. Looks like he's going to save it for the very end. Yep. So what Dan will try to do to counter the lag advantage is he will actually look for a banana or a fake and hold it. And yeah, so as he gets one right there, and he can hold this and save a lot of time throughout the course. Now, okay, so he actually won't hold this because he got a mushroom. So he will want to use that mushroom at one point. But if he hadn't have gotten that mushroom, we would have seen him hold that item throughout the race. Armin is holding a banana, but it doesn't really matter since he won't have lag anyway. Mushrooms on this course also cut off a lot of time. Whether you use it right after the jump or in the cave, you're going to save a lot of time either way. Dan getting a boo, which is an interesting item here. As you can see, Dan goes through that fake item box in the air, but that's why they lay him in the air, because they don't have any effect on you. You can just go right through them. I think the way it works is if you go off a boost pad and you hit one, you'll just go right through it. But if you don't go off a boost pad, then it can hit you in the air, and you'll actually do the tumble animation and then fall, saving you or losing you a ton of time. As Dan will finish up with that ghost still in his inventory with a 151. Very nice jump by Armin there. playing aggressively. He knows he's behind at this point, so. Oh, Armin narrowly avoids that banana. And so he'll finish up here. Dan starting Yoshi Valley will go the second fastest route. It's just a lot safer than the first route, so it's a very common route for race mode. And he probably knows he's in the lead, so he doesn't have to risk anything. Picks up a mushroom, which saves a lot of time on this course. They'll be able to cut the beginning section. So it looks like Dan is, assuming he's comparing to his world record splits, he is 26 seconds behind. So if you want to do the math on that, that's how far he is. That's what kind of pace he's on. Dan hits hairpin on lap 2. And Armin also picking up a mushroom. And Armin hits hairpin on lap 1. Very nice. The hairpin not considered a shortcut. So you can hop from one part of the track to the other part of the track. Saves a lot of time. Dan going through he's going the fastest route on lap 3, as the patterns are easier. DK is right there, though, to kind of troll him on this hairpin jump. He barely hangs on. So, as Armin hits hairpin as well, Dan using that boo. Lap 3. Yeah, DK did almost troll him, and actually, Armin knows a thing or two about getting trolled on this course by DK. Sometimes, if you hit that hairpin a couple times, you can lap these CPUs in that spot, and they can be very problematic when going for this hairpin jump. Armin have a very good race, though. Everyone hit the hairpin, and very clean race. That can be a tough course on 150cc. We've seen a lot of people get really bad times just because they fell off. So 2 courses left. Dan is definitely in the driver's seat here. He has maintained this 35-second lead, I would say. Not too much different. Yeah, there hasn't been too much time really lost or made up throughout this run, I would say. But obviously, Dan is driving better because otherwise Armin would be making up time due to the menuing. So. Banshee Boardwalk, not too much to say about this course, except that on lap 2, right before the bat house, as you can see on Armin's screen, sometimes there are a lot of bananas on that turn, and it's really bad if they're in an area where you can hit them and then go off the course, since there's no guardrail in that area. But both players getting through clean. And Dan will make his way onto Rainbow Road. Armin having a little bit of trouble there, but hops out of that mini turbo as he was about to go off the edge. And Armin will finish up Banshee, and they will both be on Rainbow Road now. And we'll kind of see when Armin starts Rainbow Road what kind of a deficit he's looking at. Unfortunately for Armin, there really aren't too many big time saves on Rainbow Road or places where your opponent can really mess up. So, I don't want to call it early, but Dan looks like he has it in the bag. even if he hits a couple of these chomps, they're only like 2 seconds each. Okay, so it looks like, yeah, he's still about 35 seconds ahead. So, as I was saying, even if Dan hit a couple of these chomps, they really only take off like 2.5 seconds per hit. So, people have fallen off on this track, but it's just extremely unlikely, especially players with the caliber of these players. Another meme on this course is feeding DK, as you can see Armin just did right there. These players will sometimes toss bananas in DK's mouth. As Dan picks up a boo, he will be safe from those chomps if he chooses to save it. Or he can use it and try to fish for as many mushrooms as possible. It's up to him. World record pace is not possible, for those wondering. He is about 26 seconds behind that. While this is the longest course in the game, actually, like, an interesting fact is I think the CPUs can only lay bananas on certain parts of the track. So, you might think at times it gets kind of crazy, but it hardly ever does. Dan using that boo to get through the chomp. Hard to say if he was about to get hit. I'm sure he knows the cycle, so he was probably just trying to take an inside line there. See if Armin feeds DK again. He does. Oh, as he spins out on the bananas right after. DK. So he fed DK, and then you could argue DK trolled him with the bananas. Actually surprised to see Armin feeding DK, given his hatred for the character in and of itself. Sub 39 is barely possible. Okay, so there's the storyline. If you're looking for one at this point in the race, will Dan get a sub 39? Armin making his way onto the last lap. Gets a pretty good tran down that hill. You go faster, sticking to the road. You go very slow in the air in this game. Dan not hitting any chomps. Neither player really hitting any chomps. What is Armin's PR? I'm not sure. He has... I know he's... I'm pretty sure he's gotten sub 40. Okay, 39.52. There you go. And Dan does get the sub by a half a second. Oh, Armin hits the chop. No. So Dan will be your winner as Armin picks up that mushroom. So Dan will move on, and he will face the winner of Climate versus Lewis, aka TYG. So congratulations to him. As Armin finishing up now, we'll get a 39.45. So is that a PR for him? Anyway, I'm not sure, as the emulator, the people on emulator have a different leaderboard than the console players. But yeah, very good time for Armin. Nothing to be ashamed of. He just ran into the buzzsaw that is Dan. As I said, he is the world record holder now. So congrats to Dan and both runners, really. It was a good race. Dan will move on to face the winner of Climate Lewis. If you want a link to the schedule so you can track these races, I'm sure someone can post it in the chat. Also, you can follow any of the runners if this interests you. The Twitch names are on display right now. You can see Armin and his hatred for DK is smashing him over and over again and speeding up the emulator. So, great stuff from him. Anyway, I am Brian, signing off. Thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your day, guys. See you later.